welcome to episode 1 of Awkward Moms. I am so excited about this endeavor. I am so excited to be able to reach so many parents who have all of these difficulties that comes with any neurodivergent disability. And I am excited to dive into this. This is something that has been on my mind, on my heart, and on my spirit for a long time. I have always wanted to do something from the moment that my son was diagnosed at 2. I've always been passionate about this topic. This is something that if you start me to talking about it, you may not stop me. So I am excited to dive into this and really try to be as much of a help as I possibly can to all of the parents out here who may have struggles or who may need help, who may need information, who may have questions. I am just wanting to be that person that you can lean on, that you can call on. If I can't answer your questions, I do not mind sitting down and researching it. I have worked in the field with neurodivergent kids, and I also live it every day. My 15-year-old has autism and ADHD. So I live it every day, and I've also worked in that field. Just an introduction of myself. My name is Brittany Daniels. I have a 15-year-old who, like I just said, has autism and ADHD. He's a blessing to have as a son. I have watched him overcome so many obstacles and overcome and cross over so many hurdles that he had to face with his disability. I've watched him grow and blossom in so many areas. I've had to make some decisions that I never thought I would have to make. But at the same time, I feel like as his mother, I had to sometimes make decisions that I may not like making, but ultimately, if it's to help him to make it in life, then hey, I have to do what I have to do. So, just again to kind of introduce myself, that's what started me on this path. My 15-year-old, he was diagnosed at 2 with autism. He by age 2 was not speaking many words. He may have said pow pow. Um, he would say he's obsessed with cars. That's his obsession. So anytime he saw a semi truck, he would say uck, uck. But I knew that the mere fact that he wasn't calling me mom or mama, and he wasn't calling his dad the famous word that babies say first, dad, I knew then that something was wrong. Back then I did not know what to do or really what resources to use because I mean back then it wasn't as popular as it is now. And I had to lean on people and just ask questions or whatever because I was uncertain. I was unsure on what to do. So I actually took him to the psychological center and he was diagnosed by Dr. Graves, and she informed me that he in fact had autism. So I'm walking away from it thinking, okay, he has autism, cool. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what in the world is autism, and what are we supposed to do with that? So I had to sit down and do some research myself to kind of figure out like what am I about to encounter and what resources do I need to use in order to um go through this path that I'm about to go through. So even at by age 5, I didn't have it all figured out. But a help was um having an aunt who is in the um field of working with disabled children. She has worked with them for years. So kind of leaning on her for some guidance and also hearing that Hand in Hand here in Thomasville had a 3-year-old program. But unfortunately the 3-year-old program was always full. So that was one of those things where I was like, okay, God, I don't know what I'm doing. His dad doesn't know what he's doing. And it's important to add that his dad struggled with even him having that diagnosis. That was a struggle for him. So I kind of was on my own with, because he'll talk when he feel like it. He's okay. He'll be fine. But for me, I knew what the reality was. So I was like, okay, well, that could be something that could help me. So, God, they say that the list is always full. They always, but I really need this to come through for me because I need all the help I can get. By age 3, he's still not potty trained. I'm struggling with potty training because, hey, how can he tell me he has to use the bathroom if he's not talking? So it was really a struggle with potty training. It was a struggle with, I mean, so many things. And once I decided to make the decision to put him in school, which was a hard decision because I was a stay at home mom. So it was kind of tough for me to relinquish my non talking 3-year old to go to school. So I understood that I had to make this decision because if I didn't, then I would lose my son. So I couldn't, let my personal feelings affect how I felt about him going to school. So I remember distinctly his first day of school because he did get into the school. He was able to get into the school. Thank God for that. And his first day at school, me, my mom, his dad, and my dad went to drop him off. And I just remember so well me dropping him off and walking into the classroom and seeing that they put him in a special class. And when I say special class, I'm talking about these kids were in wheelchairs and like kind of probably wearing Pampers, and they were very much not on the level that he was on. So I was kind of nervous about that because I felt like, well, I know my son, he's not talking and he has this disability, but ultimately he still is, your average child. He still plays, he still laughs, so he's not as severe as some of these kids in this classroom. So not only am I dropping my non-talking 3-year-old off at school, but he's in this kind of classroom. So that was very, very hard for me. I had to leave the class and cry because it was very hard for me. I was very overwhelmed. But ultimately, again, I had to do what I felt was best for my son. He was in that classroom for about 2 weeks. And they called me and they said that he is no longer needed in that classroom. Like they felt like he could go to a regular ed classroom, that he just wasn't as severe as I think they thought he was. So they put him in a regular ed classroom, which was the best thing for me. That's what I needed because I just felt like he did not belong in there. So once they moved him to the regular ed classroom, I would say by 4, he was talking my ear off. So if you're ever questioning, I don't know if I need to take my kids to school, or I don't know if I'm ready for them to go to school, never question it. Because ultimately, that's being around other kids their age, that's what will help them kind of pick up their vocabulary. Yes, they can listen to you talk all day, but being around kids their age is what kind of pushes them to kind of pick up their vocabulary some. So I would say, please, 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 if you have a resource where these kids can go to school, let them go. Don't be nervous about it. Put them in an area where you feel like they're safe. Check it out. I definitely went out to the school first, checked out the classroom, talked to the teacher, did all of that before I released him to go. So I definitely say make sure you scope out where your kid is going, scope out the teacher, scope out the school, scope out everything before releasing your child, especially capital especially if you have a nonverbal child, because they cannot come home and tell you how school was. Your average child, you can say, hey, how was school? And they can sit down and they can tell you, we did this and we did this and we had fun, and my son couldn't tell me what he did at school. When I would ask him how was school, he just looked at me. because he can't verbally tell me how school was. But by 4, I asked that question and I got a whole earful. So I say definitely never, ever, ever miss the opportunity to help that kid advance. By age 11, he was struggling a lot in school. And I began to notice that he could not focus well unless it was something involving a car, a train, or any form of transportation. That's the only thing he paid attention to. Other than that, his focus was just not there. So I said, okay, when I took him to the doctor, I informed his doctor that, I feel like it's something else going on. I know he's autistic, but I feel like it's something else going on too. So can we dive into testing for something else? Because I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something that's off. That's also important. Always, 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 always advocate for your child. Do not allow a doctor, a parent, or anybody to deter you from something that you feel like your child needs. So always, you have to be your child's voice. Advocate for them 100%. Pay attention to things that are off with them, or you feel like I just see something, even if it's something small. Never let anything small make you feel like, well, it's not that big of a deal. It is. Everything is that big of a deal. So I talked to his doctor and I told him that I just feel like we need to test for something. So we were set up with another psychologist and ended up finding out that he also has ADHD. From what I've seen, don't know the research, but from what I've saw, most kids who have autism also have ADHD. So not all of them, but most of them also have ADHD. So that's kind of like it's on the same scale, it's on the same spectrum. So it's kind of like one of those things that kind of goes with it. So I definitely would say if your child has autism, just pay close attention to them and make sure that they're kind of focused. Because if you start to see that their focus is off, or you start to see that their grades are slipping, that was one of my biggest things. Grades were not up to par, and that kind of thing. And when I started kind of noticing that, I was kind of like, okay, something else is wrong. So when he was diagnosed with ADHD, I was like, okay, now we have this diagnosis. Let's try this. So I would say when he was about, I think he was 13, um, I was sitting in an IEP meeting, and I'm going to dive into IEPs, RTIs, 504s. I'm going to dive into all of those later in the series and kind of talk about what each one of them is, what they consist of. I have sat in so many IEP meetings. Both of my kids have IEPs, so I have a lot of knowledge on them. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I have everything that I can possibly give out for that information. So I will later in the episodes dive into that. But I was sitting in an IEP meeting, and it's kind of like everybody was talking, but I just heard white noise. Because the only word that I heard was focus. Anytime they said focus, I heard focus, but everything else was white noise. And then I would hear focus and then white noise. And I stopped everybody from talking, the teachers, everybody. His dad was in the middle of talking, and I stopped him from talking. And I just told everybody to just please be quiet for a second. And so I said, how do you feel about him trying medication? And his teachers immediately said, I think that's a brilliant idea. Not for behavioral concerns or anything like that. He's never had any behaviors or anything like that. He is loved by every teacher he's ever encountered. Like he is 100% loved. So, not for behavioral things, but because of his focus. And I was nervous about that because yes, I'm one of those parents that was kind of like, I don't want to medicate my child. I don't want my child to in my head of not knowing or not having the knowledge of the medication, I don't want my child to be a zombie, is what I would tell myself. But in that moment, I realized, and it's kind of like God dropped in my spirit, that you're worried about the wrong thing. I have your child. And if this is something that your child needs, then you have to trust that I have your child and you're not raising a zombie. So there's no reason for him to be a zombie. So when the teachers were like, I think that's a brilliant idea, I think that's a great idea, I was like, I think that's what we're going to do. I think we're going to try medication and see how that works because his focus is horrible. Yes, I have this ADHD diagnosis, and yes, we have the autism diagnosis, but his focus is still just not there. And I just cannot continue to watch him fail when I know what's in his head. So, his next doctor's appointment, I talked to his doctor. I asked his doctor about ADHD meds, and he said, "What about Adderall?" Another key point. The great thing that I love about both my boys' doctor is he also has an autistic daughter. So he 100% understands anything that I tell him I'm going through, that we're encountering, that's happening, because he lives it as well. So I said that to say it's great to have a village. A village is 100% important. I had to create a village because I didn't have a village around me. So I had to create a village of people, from them knowing that I have an autistic child. So they're coming to me like, do you think my child is autistic? What do you think my child is? And so that's kind of how a village was created. But ultimately, me raising my son, I didn't have anybody to lean on. I didn't have anyone to ask questions. I didn't have a village. And when I say a village, I mean someone who not just works in the field, but lives it every day. It's one thing to have the knowledge and to know, you studied it and all of that, but it's another thing to live it daily. And I just didn't have anyone around me that lived it. So it was kind of a lonely feeling, because it's like I have all these questions, but I don't really know what to do with this. Like, does your child do this? That kind of thing. And it's like I didn't have anyone to turn to. So what was so important to me was making sure that I created a village for the people that came behind me. So if they needed help, they had questions, they encountered things or whatever, they can always reach out to me and ask questions, because it was important to me to have that because I didn't have it. So I said that to say I got his doctor. So I asked his doctor, how do you feel about him going on ADHD meds? Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think, no, not too much? He told me he thinks that's a brilliant idea. His daughter is on Adderall, and we can definitely try Adderall and see how that works. So I told him, okay, let's try Adderall. We tried Adderall. Best decision I made ever. Again, this is not a thing that works for every child. My child it worked for. Never knock it. If you feel like your child may need some help with focus, Gavin has never been a zombie ever. He reminds me to give him his medication. He reminds me, Mom, I need a refill on my meds. Mom, my meds are low. Because he himself feels what the medication has done for him and his focus. So we went from making F's to straight A's, just like that. Just because we help this focus. So a lot of times what we don't get to see is what's in their minds. Because hey, we have a mind that's working, I don't want to say normal, but that's not on the spectrum. So we don't get to see what's going on in their minds. And like I said, I worked in this field as well. So my boss took us through an exercise, and she had us close our eyes, and everybody had a certain thing to say, and everybody was talking at the same time. The lights were blinking on and off. We were opening and closing our eyes. It was like a lot going on in the room, and it was loud, and it was just a lot. And then when we stopped, all of us looked like, what did we just encounter? And she told us this is what an autistic mind sees every day. They're constantly just boop, 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 boop. And for us, we're looking like, just please. But for them, that's how their minds work. They're constantly, especially ADHD, they're constantly going, 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 going. And they, as kids, they don't know how to shut them off. As adults, you can kind of deal with it better. But as a kid, you don't know how to shut that off. So the thing is just making sure that your child has something that can kind of shut them off, especially for school. I give him his medication for school purposes. I try not to too much give it to him during the summer or on breaks because I want him to just be normal. If he asks me for it, I will give it to him because again, he can feel when he's overstimulated. He can feel when he's kind of off. So if he asks me for it, I'll hand it to him. But if not, I kind of give him a break from it. If we're not in school, but I kind of got it for school purposes. But it definitely, definitely, definitely helped 100%. 100%. Fast forward to high school. Being a freshman in high school, he kind of encountered, still making good grades, but he kind of encountered um a problem with his medication lasting the entire day. Or maybe around lunchtime he would kind of feel it die down some, and going into his classes after lunch, he's kind of like, well, my focus is kind of dying down. And what I love about my son at this point is he communicates with his doctor. I don't have to, I'm just in the room. And so he communicated with his doctor that, after lunch, I just can't really focus anymore. So his doctor asked me how I felt about him going on another dose of medication, not as high as the first one, but just a second dose to kind of be a kicker for that first dose to last throughout the entire school day. 1000% nervous about that because I said to myself, we tried this medication thing and it took everything in me to allow this medication thing to happen. And now we're talking about giving him a second medication. So we're going to take 2 medications a day. I don't know. But I had to realize that I had to listen to my child. And he knows what he feels. And he knows how it's not working for him. So with that being said, I looked at him and I looked back at his doctor and I said, let's try it. Again, best decision that I could have made. Math this year is a struggle a bit. But other than that, grades are still wonderful. So it's kind of showing me that me making that decision was a great decision. Um so now at 15, he's about to walk into being a sophomore in high school. And this journey has been a journey. We've had a lot of ups and we've had a lot of downs. We've had some tantrums. We've had some things that we encountered throughout this journey, but I can say overall, I would change nothing about this journey. Nothing. Um, Nervous about going into the older ages, kind of going through the process of kind of asking myself, do I think it would be smart of him to move out of our home? I'm uncertain and unsure. I'm just kind of watching that. But overall, he's a great child. Gives me no problems. Give nothing. We've had no behavioral issues in school. We've had no, I mean, he's a great child, and everybody that comes around him loves him immediately because he's right, a light of sunshine for me. Um, I can also say that he's came out a lot socially. I named this awkward mom because a lot of kids are awkward when they have autism. They call them awkward. And they are, because their social cues are off. They don't know how to be social like we do. So their social cues are off. And it kind of makes them awkward, or kind of makes them a lot of times not fit in, or a lot of times just kind of be different. So I can say that's something that he's came out of a lot. He's more social. He's more talkative. He talks a lot, but I can say that he's came out a lot socially, and that is something that I really prayed for, because we went through a phase where, especially when he was like maybe 8, 9, we went through a phase where he only had a handful of people that he would talk to, and that's it. Like, you couldn't even get him to speak to you; just simply say, "Hey," it was a no. So we're getting better with that. We're also getting better with eye contact. He's giving better eye contact than what he used to. So I can see him blossoming. So I must say to all the moms out there and dads, I never want to, please don't think that because I named this awkward moms that I do not care about the dads, because I do. The dads have to encounter things too. And I hope at some point that I can pull his dad in, and we can hear it from his standpoint and how he feels. But I just want to make sure you understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And it may seem hard, especially if your child is small. You may have so many questions and wonder so much about who my child is going to be, what my child is going to develop into. Is this going to get better? That's something else I want to, the narrative I want to kill. Autism does not have a, oh, he doesn't have autism anymore, or oh, she doesn't have autism anymore. It does not go away. That it is a neurodivergent thing that lives in their body for the rest of their life. They do not grow out of it. That is not a thing. So understand that if your child is diagnosed, this is something that you will encounter for the rest of their life. So although there are a lot of adults out there who fully live a full life, are married with kids and everything else, they still have autism. So I just want to encourage moms and dads that it does get better. Speaking from experience, it does. Do I still have my days where I'm like, oh my God? Yes, those days will come. But it does get better. And your child can be everything that you want your child to be. My child is on the National Honor Society, and he is a great child. So I just wanted to encourage you before I dive into this that it does get better. It does get better. But it's just up to you to, again, my favorite word, advocate for your child. It is up to you to advocate for your child. They can't do it themselves. They cannot do it themselves. And you can't give up, even when it gets hard, because there are going to be hard days. There are going to be plenty of days. There are plenty of days I cried myself to sleep. There are going to be hard days, but ultimately you have to advocate for your child, speak up for your child, and make sure that the people around you understands who your child is, what they're diagnosed with, and this is why, and this is why not. That's very important. So I just wanted to, kind of come in and let you guys know who I am and why I decided to do this. And also let you know that I not only live this, but I have also worked in this. So I have worked with other kids who also have neurodivergent disabilities. And I've met some wonderful kids, and everybody's looks different. So please don't look at another kid and be like, well, why is my kid not doing it? Everybody's looks different. No one looks the same. Everybody's is different. But it's, again, ultimately up to you to make sure that you're your child's advocate, and you make sure that your child has every piece of resource and everything that they need to succeed, because you want to see your child succeed. So it's up to you. My favorite word, throughout this series is going to be advocate. You're going to hear it a lot. That's my favorite word because you have to be the voice for your child. Your child doesn't have one. So you have to be the voice for them, especially when they're nonverbal. So I'm going to end this one. And I hope that I can help someone, even if you just simply watch episode 1 and listen to my story. The goal is always, always, always to help someone. I don't have a motive for doing this. I don't have let's make money. I don't have any of that. My goal for doing this is simply to help parents who need help, who don't have it. Or if you have help, but you still need more help, or you need a village, or that's my goal, to make sure that I can help in whatever way I can possibly can. I am very, very, very passionate about this topic. And I love, love, love talking about it and helping and doing whatever I can. So at the end of this, I'm going to put my information on the screen. Please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And if you have questions, if you have concerns, please don't hesitate. Another thing I wanted to also put out there is I want more parents. I want parents to come over and we sit down and talk and you tell your story. And we just have dialogue about how it is being a parent. And that's moms and dads. I am not killing dads at all. Moms and dads. How it is being a parent of a neurodivergent child. And when I say neurodivergent, that is autism, ADHD, Asperger's, and ADD as well. So any form of that spectrum. I would love for you to come over and we sit down and we have dialogue. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me as well. I would love for us to sit down and talk. I would love to hear your story. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And we're gonna end it here. Thank you. Bye bye.